folks. Kind of a scratchy recording there, but it is what it is. Turn it down a bit. You might recognize that piece as Ravel's Pavane for a Dead Princess. Thought that might be appropriate for today's subject. Okay, well, let's start as we normally do with talking about the AI art. I picked this particular one from the ones that were offered for the prompt I gave it, which was, come on, what happens when heavenly bodies are crowned? And that one happened to grab me a little bit more than the others. If you're curious what other ideas it gave me, other ideas, they all kind of had got the idea of a heavenly body, but actually only one of them showed a body that I don't know, I probably should have picked that one as my core image, but for whatever reason I picked the other one. Okay, where are we going with this today? I'm going to call this one Secrets of Middle-earth, Titania and Oberon Reconciled. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the concept of Middle-earth, let me fill you in on that. Middle-earth is actually a very common theme in worldwide mythology. Not only in the Tolkien universe, but in terms of many different cultures' view of what's going on here. In fact, like in China, they call it the Middle Kingdom, and consider China to be like the middle of the earth, the most important place, if you will. Other cultures have a strong idea that there is an underworld that is very important to what's going on with the human condition. Okay, so I want to basically focus today on kind of closing the gap between mythology and science, fantasy and science fiction. As you may know if you follow my channel, everything is based upon the premise that consciousness is fundamental. And in fact, there is a quantum realm of consciousness where that is basically pure consciousness. And that is the substrate of the simulation multiverse. All of the manifestations of consciousness we see mapped into different universes basically are a projection of consciousness, individual consciousnesses that reside in this quantum space. Okay? Now we've talked about recently what the implications of that were for life, the evolution of life, and where cells came from, and how the cell is a really great illustration of the manifestation of the merkaba pattern. If you're coming here for the first time, you're going to learn again, or maybe for the first time, what I mean by a merkaba. Okay, so let's go to a little bit of review here. Let me get my slide deck up. Okay, so basically, what a merkaba is, oops, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, you are. Good. Oh, I forgot to change the background image there. Well, sue me. So a merkaba is basically a mathematical structure built of quantum consciousness. Okay? When consciousness started becoming conscious, started having constructive thoughts, creative thoughts, what separated, let's back up a little bit here to another slide that I like to frequently use. Before consciousness really started developing into anything substantial, there were just random thoughts, random thoughts in a substrate of quantum consciousness. That space, no one knows how big it was, how long it existed. You know, there's no telling where that space came from. If it all emerged from one thought, or it emerged multiple times until it was able to sustain thoughts that were useful. Okay, so in this primordial state, though, let's just assume that we've had a lot of failed experiments, and there were maybe partial remnants of previous experiments that didn't quite form a fully formed lizard that was able to sustain itself. And that's kind of reflected here. This is sort of what the quantum consciousness space might have looked like in a very primordial state. Okay, so one of the first things that you would have needed to do as God in this primordial consciousness state is to establish supremacy, an advantage over the other random thoughts around you. How would you do that? Well, you'd have to have better thoughts, more constructive thoughts than anyone else, and you would need to have a barrier to protect those thoughts from anybody else that might just go steal them and then turn them against you, which we see a lot of today, don't we? We see, China's spent basically decades stealing technology from the West and using it against us. That illustrates how far from God humanity's development has been up till recently. Okay, we haven't been the smartest species in the shed. So basically, this idea of the merkaba is a collection of souls specialized for a particular purpose. And you can envision those purposes being part of a cellular structure. Okay, where, like God's mind is the nucleus of this primordial quantum universe, quantum consciousness universe. And there would be a protective layer, and that protective layer, let's call karma. And then there's an active layer of this cell where you're doing a lot of munging of stuff. Like in a real cell, in the cytoplasm is where all the manufacture and disposal of proteins and other chemicals and whatnot happen. It's a pretty messy place. And that's why there has to be an isolation between this area and the nucleus. Otherwise, if without this protective layer, the DNA, which is, the core essence of a cell, would get damaged. Okay, and then you have an outer membrane that protects you from things outside this cell. Okay, this is one layer of 3 layers of the merkaba. So if we look at the fully structured merkaba, let's see, I think that's about here. You've got this central layer that is the real you, your center, your universe, if you're a God level character, where you do your secret creations that nobody can peer into and copy from. You've got a secondary layer of sharing with other gods, a spiritual layer that has the same structure. And then you have an outermost layer. Actually, that's not the final state. You've got an outer 4 layers that is your interaction with the physical universe, which is a special universe where creations get tested very harshly, because that physical universe is a place where evil can exist. And evil, from a creation standpoint, is destructive testing. So, to a creator, it's a necessary evil. These are necessary evils because you don't know if a creation works unless it can withstand the assault of anything that the bad guys can throw at it. Okay, so how does this map? We talked about how this mapped to DNA and to life in previous episodes. Now I'm going to talk about how it maps to heavenly bodies. Same structure. Okay, so basically, as the physical universe developed, it had to go through these same phases of structuring. The innermost layer of a physical universe is the elemental plane. The innermost piece of a heavenly body is its elemental nucleus, its elemental cell. And that cell is a quantum consciousness. The planet has a name. That name is the God that, basically pulled together this planet into a gelled thing. And then actually, that's the way gravity works. This central nucleus is where the spiritual energy existed, manifested as negative matter. And the positive matter around it, the gas cloud, would then be attracted to the negative matter and pulled into this nucleus until a planetary framework had been assembled. This is how planets form. They formed originally with a different set of laws than we have now. Okay, the original planets, stars, whatever, galaxies were formed before the laws of physics and chemistry were fine-tuned, such that there was a standard way to generate galaxies, stars, planets, etc. But all of them have a similar structure. And that structure is actually, the innermost core is a physical Dyson sphere. Okay, there is a Dyson sphere within the Earth. There is one within the Sun. There is one within every planet in our solar system. That Dyson sphere works in its own way internally, kind of like a black hole. And it projects out what it wants you to see. So, you know, you can bounce waves through it and make measurements and think that, okay, the core is all iron. Done. We know exactly what's going on in the middle of the Earth. No, that's not true. You're seeing what the elemental consciousness of that core projects out. And what you see depends on how strong their projection is versus how strong your technology looking into it is. Okay, that's the core of our planet. And as I've told you about before, how much negative matter it manifests determines how big the planet is, because you can change gravity. You can adjust the negative matter in the core of a planet and get the planet to the outer layers to contract or expand. And this is how, in the early days of this planet, when the elemental beings in our planet had more unlimited powers, they weren't restricted by the fine-tuning of the laws of physics and chemistry. They could basically make earthquakes happen at will. They could make all sorts of horrible things happen just by contracting or expanding the force of gravity on the outer layers. Okay, that is in fact how we got to the special time 4.5 billion years ago, where this planet was nearly destroyed. Because at that point, what had developed is that we had a very solid set of laws governing the elemental plane of creation, so that, you know, these elemental forces were reined in by a lot of laws of physics and chemistry. And when this planet was destroyed, that elemental layer was a very well-formed physical Dyson sphere, impervious to anything you could throw at it. And that's why the planet wasn't completely destroyed, unlike whatever was in the area where the asteroid belt is. Okay, that's why we don't have an asteroid belt in our orbital plane. And there is one in this other orbital plane. That planet that was there had not developed a fully protected Dyson sphere. And so, you know, a collision with another planetary object basically disintegrated what was going on there. Okay, that's also why there are discrete planets in other orbital planes. Okay, they have a fully formed nucleus, elemental nucleus that keeps them safe. Now the next layer out, the middle Earth, is where we're going to talk about next. Okay, so let's move down to see what a two-layer planetary body would look like. Let's see. Okay, I think, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So here is what the next stage of development would be, is to develop, okay, the center of planetary bodies is a physical Dyson sphere. but we know that there are spiritual and physical forces. Okay, so a physical Dyson sphere is very impervious to physical collisions. Okay, it's not going to break apart if you hit it with another planet or a star or something like that, or it comes by the neighborhood. To give it more protection, that what will happen though is anything outside that protected area is pretty much toast. Okay? And 4.5 billion years ago, that's all that had been firmly developed. There were outer layers, all of the outer layers of a 12D merkaba, but the outer layers, the spiritual layer, and the outermost, surface layer, if you will, had not been fully protected. And so this nucleus was still there, but you had basically a spiritual layer that was damaged and had the intrusion of some of the matter, some of the manifestations, quantum consciousness manifestations of this other body that hit this planet, which was an adversary attack. Okay? This was an attempt to destroy God's chosen planet. Now, at the time, the adversary didn't know about physical Dyson spheres. So as far as the adversary was concerned, 4.5 billion years ago, they won. They killed God, destroyed his favorite planet, and made sure that he would never wake up and rebuild it. Well, there were other entities that knew better, because they hid inside this Dyson sphere. They retreated to this inner layer and hid out. And that's how we keep the game going, no matter what the adversary does. They're never going to destroy creation. It's just never going to happen. They keep trying because that's what they're basically programmed to do. That's how you get creation to work. That's how you have an adversary, a destructive tester that's really good at their job, but never succeeds in completely destroying the creation, which is kind of a necessary condition to have at least a stable creation, if not expanding. Okay, so this second layer then is the layer that was partially built at the time that this planet was destroyed. And there were basically a lot of prototypical gods and goddesses inside this spiritual layer. Many of them got blown away. They weren't allowed to come into the corral, if you will. Okay, because this was another chance to test. Every apocalypse, every great reset is an opportunity to see, okay, do they deserve to be saved? And they have to get through karma. That is basically what prevents bad ideas from getting integrated into God's plan. Okay? And this planet embodies God's plan. Always has. From the very beginning. This has been the chosen planet. There is a chosen star, our sun. The other planets have been other test tubes that we've done ancillary experiments with. So they have their own gods, their own species, their own nature, which contributed to this, because when this planet gets destroyed or gets life wiped out on the surface layer, we then have the species that are protected by the other planets nearby and the fire elemental species that are inside the sun. They can come and they can help rebuild. And because they're part of the chosen solar system, those that are basically married to it by being part of the innermost layers of these other planets, they're the ones that know the most about God's plan. Not everything, because God's a good poker player. Doesn't give away everything. Doesn't let everybody look over their shoulder and see how great a player they are. And God doesn't have that kind of an ego. Damn good poker player, damn good creator. Okay, so this spiritual layer is what we are perfecting now. And if you count the number of layers, you have 4 that are the elemental core. That's perfected. We know how to do that. We know how to build physical Dyson spheres. Humanity doesn't yet, but let me tell you, you're not the sharpest species on the planet. You don't have the highest technology in this galaxy, in this solar system. You're just babies, absolute babies as far as physical technology goes. This species was intended to develop spiritual technology to flesh out this second layer. Okay, because when we can finish out this spiritual Dyson sphere, we have a better structure, a more balanced structure for a planetary or a star body. And when this structure is perfected, we can then move that technology out so that, okay, now we know how to make the perfect planet. Let's install that new version of virtual reality into the sun, so we have a better, more resilient sun that we can recharge. We don't have to wait for it to burn all its fuel and go supernova or anything. We can tweak it. Similarly, there is a Dyson sphere around this whole solar system, but it is a flawed Dyson sphere, okay, because we have not yet moved this technology from the core planet out. That was what was prevented by the destruction of this planet 4.5 billion years ago. Because physical technology perfection without spiritual technology perfection is inherently evil. Physical technology says, it's like our big tech leadership that was in a big conference that I've been listening to last week. They just want to make money. They want to be the first one to the finish line. They have absolutely no spiritual bone in their body. These big tech CEOs and the uber ambitious politicians. It's not in their nature. It's not part of their DNA. Because they are flawed, and they are flawed for a reason, because you need those Luciferian souls that just want to get what they want done, and they don't care who they have to step on to get there. That's a useful template of leadership when you're at war, when you have an adversary, when you're working against a clock. Okay? Those souls serve a purpose. And that maps into the structure of the merkaba. The Luciferian layer is where all the dirty work gets done. And then the karmic layer makes sure the dirty work doesn't get into the nucleus or doesn't seep out to invade outside this little cell. Okay, so what's been going on in this spiritual layer that was partially destroyed? You can kind of, a good way to maybe think of it, you remember the second Death Star in Star Wars that was partially assembled? Well, actually, that was the first Death Star. Remember, it was almost completely constructed, but they were still working on it, and so it had some weaknesses. That's essentially what was going on here. The top layers, the outermost layer. Let's get back to the full view. Let's see. I think we're there. Okay, so the outermost physical layer, surface layer of the planet, is what can get destroyed if something gets through the Dyson sphere that's protecting the whole solar system. Okay, and as I've said, the rest of the galaxy, the rest of the universe is waiting for us to finalize both of these. We've essentially finalized the physical layer, the elemental layer, but we need to get that technology out with all the latest stuff, which includes the latest version of karma, the latest version of Lucifer, the latest version of Borg, the latest version of God. Okay? Whatever that is. I mean, this is a pattern, right? The nucleus, the God nucleus, depends on what thing you're manifesting. Okay, so you could think of the God of the planetary core being where, all of the power is there to be able to basically transform elements and energy into anything you want, basically. That's how much capability is wrapped up in this pattern. And the use of it is governed by the other layers. So, the God nucleus can't force its will on the rest of the cell. This core of the planet is a system, and the system has to function together. It's a balanced government, if you will. And this is kind of the nature of the creative pattern. A balanced government has to have these layers. And there's 4 layers. Well, that's interesting because, the government of the United States only has 3 layers, doesn't it? It's got the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. What's missing? God. What is the pattern of God? That's the king. Okay? If you don't have a king, you do not have, and a royal line and a succession plan, you don't have a sustainable government. Sorry, you can't get rid of your kings that easily. It's not going to work. The king doesn't have a lot of power, but it has this kind of a nuclear function of, okay, you guys, you want to do all this stuff. You've got to convince me to give you the spiritual energy to do it. So it's kind of like the king it has sort of a veto type power, but not a hard veto, because you can override and say, well, we're just going to do it anyway. We're going to brute force it. We don't need anything from you. Okay, fine. You don't need the spiritual energy of the king, of the god, the center character. Fine. Do it yourself. And this is basically how this spiritual layer has been working, because God, capital G, has been waking up in different species, different peoples, in this outermost layer, this very dangerous outermost layer. Okay, for the last 4.5 billion years, God has been constrained to, okay, you're going to be in this most dangerous layer, having incarnation after incarnation. We're going to be throwing everything we can at you, both from within and without, and let's see if you can wake up to be God again. In the meantime, we're all going to have fun playing while the cat's asleep. That's what we've been at for 4.5 billion years. So who's been in charge in this spiritual layer, if you will? Now, this innermost layer, this physical layer, without God in attendance, would have been ruled by a stand-in from this universe, which is Lucifer's physical universe. So basically, the core of this planet has been a Luciferian stronghold. And this is why, on the average, the planet has had mostly a patriarchal feel to it. Sorry, ladies, that's just the way it's been. And that's the way it's going to be, because when the planet is finally complete and restored, the return of the king, sorry, queens don't rate as high as kings. They never will. Why? Because it's bad for creation. When queens take over, they have a tendency to form hive minds. They want everybody to be nice. They want to give you all the laws to tell you exactly what you can and can't do, so you will all be nice little children for your queen. It doesn't work. That makes a hive mind. That is evil. It's a creative idea that is bad. It's good as a destructive tester. Hive minds are great destructive testers, because, even if it's a fairly neutral hive mind, if you go try to colonize one of their planets, they will mercilessly attack back. Or if they think that they feel threatened because you've got, a star system within a certain number of parsecs, say of the bugger hive mind, they will attack you. And if you start a war, they will retaliate, and it will escalate. And, it's hive-minded species are not that bright. That's the problem with hive minds. They concentrate their spiritual energy, their intelligence, in a very few individuals, in a very narrow hierarchy of entities. And then, the ones at the bottom have no individual agency. They have to be told exactly what to do, when to do it. Okay, in a war, that never is going to beat an army that has a high degree of intelligence and freedom at the lowest level. That kind of an army is much more flexible. And you can see that in the world right now, despite the fact that, basically the United States is under assault from all sides, as well as Israel. They have the best organized armies because they give the best training and the best freedoms to the individual soldiers. You look at the army of Russia or the army of China, and no, they have to do exactly what they're told. And if they don't do it, they've got a battalion of elite behind them ready to shoot them if they retreat. This is why communist countries lose wars. They may win skirmishes, they may be temporarily successful because they work very underhanded. They'll backstab you, they will pretend to be your friend for decades and then suddenly turn on you. They'll steal your technology, whatever. They have no principles, they have no morals. They're never going to win. I'm sorry, if you bet on China and Russia, because they can do anything. Man, they got this great dictator in charge. He can dictate anything. You're fucking stupid. And I don't mind telling you that. You're playing on the wrong side. That's not the side of God. That's not how God works. God is not almighty, all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful, anything. God is fucking smart and good at organizing and leading other smart and independent thinkers. Wins every time. Okay, so what's been going on in this spiritual layer? Essentially, the spirit, the high spirit, when God's not around, is karma, not Lucifer. So in this spiritual layer, basically has been run by the karma of this planet. Okay, and that karmic female presence is the female side of this planet. That is the soft side, the thoughtful side, that kind of counterpoises the center, that is the Luciferian, let's just get this thing done side. Okay, and they have been, to some extent, at odds during the whole of this 4.5 billion years. With, basically the elementals in the Luciferian center wanting to do basically anything they could think of to finish out this project of building a fully tested merkaba, but they approach it from a very materialistic, physical point of view. The spiritual layer, the Middle Earth, is this spiritual layer. That is where, so let's talk about how that's worked in terms of while this experiment was going on, when higher level consciousness was developed, we couldn't let it out of the test tube. Okay, so if new gods emerged as part of this experiment we've been working on, they had to be constrained so that they wouldn't leak out of the test tube until we were sure that the experiment worked. Because we're in a simulation, we're running it over and over again. And until it converges on the goal, we don't want to let things out of the lab. So we've been working on building this second layer, this spiritual layer. And this is where we've been stuck for a long time. This is why the number 7 is considered lucky. Because we've been successful generating, okay, we got these 4 layers, we've been successful building up to the Luciferian layer, but we always get stumped when we're trying to build, okay, what Borg membrane do we need around this thing? What bunch of non-player characters, programmed characters do we need to complete this outer membrane? And so, you know, the 7 days of creation, it's 7, 7, 7, 7 is all over the place, right? And that's because we've never got to beyond 7 and successfully. And so it's like those working on this experiment have figured, well, gee, 7 is the best you can do. And let's just sustain what we've got. We've got 7 good layers here. And then this layer is not so important because if it gets destroyed a little bit, you know, evil gets into this Borg layer, well, we can just fight them off. Borgs are easy to fight off. They don't have much brains. And so we've been kind of stuck at this point. And we've gone beyond sometimes. There are mythologies, there are stories in various traditions that emphasize a higher magic number than 7. In fact, the latest accepted perfection, or one of them, of the string theorists is an 11D string theory. That's basically getting to, okay, well, we think that we can make it perfect if we have this 11th layer all figured out scientifically. I'm sorry. We're working on a spiritual layer here, and if the outermost physical layer has defects in the spiritual layer, it's not going to work. And so we've been stuck for a long, long time, and it turns out that there's no intermediate state that you can get to that is going to be stable. That's why we've never gotten past this point, and every Messiah that is born gets only so far, and oops, you got assassinated. Oops, you got corrupted. Oops, your message was twisted into. I mean, this is the problem with Christianity. Christianity is a useful religion, but it also has some very useless aspects about it that prevent higher consciousness from forming. The idea that I'm going to be forgiven no matter what sins I commit is really kind of stupid at heart. It's a nice feel-good thing, but it encourages laziness. It encourages sinfulness. Oh, well, I can go to church and I'll be forgiven. And you know, you've got a lot of Sunday Christians who would do almost anything to get ahead in the world. And I suspect a lot of the folks in that what was that, all-in conference last week were of that variety of Sunday Christians or Sunday Buddhists or whatever, Muslims. It's those religions have holes in them. And you know, so many people thought that we would never get a fully awakened God. Well, it turned out what needed to happen was all of these layers had to be done. We needed to go for the full Monty, I guess is maybe a good way to put it. And that is what we're in the middle of right now. Shocking the hell out of everybody because so many barriers had been put up to make sure that we wouldn't achieve this completion of day 7 of creation. Everybody had either given up on God, was already opposed to God, or didn't even believe in God anymore. We don't need him. It's just fine the way it is. Yeah. And there's still a lot of folks in those camps, and they're going to be fine. We're going to deal with them. What has been going on to keep this system in the test tube, when souls die, they end their current incarnation, they don't go to heaven unless there have been phases along the way where there were major improvements to this layer or this layer that were good enough, that well enough tested that, you know what, everybody could probably use that. And so there was some progress during this evolution to generate gods through this system. And those generated gods from this system are the ones that went out and explored the galaxy, developed their own civilization, developed their own gods, their own ideas, and brought them back. Brought them back as adversarial ideas because they're defending their planet, their star systems, their galaxies. Okay, and this, we've talked about this recently, about this creative tension. As souls die, they get opportunities that are provided by the species that are here. Okay, humanity has never really been the alpha species on this planet. Still isn't. The ones really pulling the strings, the ones that have the most power, the ones that can make things happen, are not human. They are alien from outside, members of the Galactic Federation or these Lilithian hive minds, or more commonly, they are undead. They are entities that are spiritually adept, either in service to evil, the Lilithians, or in service to good, but more of a Luciferian nature. Okay, and as he said, Lucifer is on God's side, but is kind of the bull in the china shop, okay? Doesn't care what you step on as long as the end goal is met. Okay, so you have these two classes of undead at work, and they actually occur within the same species. So you've got Luciferian vampires and you've got Lilithian vampires. You've actually got some species that are hermaphrodite, that don't have males and females. Those are the succubi and incubi. Those are definitely Lilithian entities. Okay? Anything that is sexless hates sex. They think it's just, they created it. They thought it was going to be their weapon of mass destruction, and now it's become part of God's victory, and so they hate it even more. And they are working to destroy humanity through sex. They are the ones behind this gender dysmorphia movement that's going on, and they will destroy humanity as a species. We won't be able to reproduce anymore. The fertility rates are plummeting. And it's not just a physical thing, it is a spiritual thing. And the spiritual component is much stronger. And it's going to get worse if we don't stop if we don't stop them indoctrinating our children. Through the media, through the schools, in every which way, they are grabbing your children's minds and warping them to be non-human. They think they're making them extra human, superhuman. Well, that may be the result for some of them that are so useful, such useful idiots, that they are given, a higher ranking in these cults. Maybe they get rewarded with becoming one of these undead species, and they have a longer lifespan, okay? They're harder to kill. They can be killed, as we know. There are ways to kill vampires. There are even ways to kill demons, the succubi, incubi. It's not really kill them, but you can drive them away. You can banish them from this universe. That's what exorcism is all about. At least the best exorcists. Penny anti-exorcists, like most of the folks in the Catholic Church, they mean well, but they're mostly just taking these spirits out of one vessel, and then they go wandering till they find a new one. And that's why there's such a great risk of the spirit actually invading the exorcist, which is, something that did happen in the movie The Exorcist, and it does happen. This is how, one of the reasons that the Catholic Church is so corrupt at its highest levels, because there are demons or demon-possessed people at those high levels. And they are encouraged, they are empowered to gain more power through these demonic connections, to the extent that you've got a large fraction of the Judeo-Christian world that looks at Solomon the Wise and thinks he was a great king, even though it's right there that he trafficked with demons to get his fucking temple built. Okay, this Solomon was not a wise guy. He was a fucking evil bastard. A Luciferian evil. Who, okay, I'll deal with any demon as long as it will build me a beautiful golden palace. Beautiful golden temple. That'll make God happy, won't it? That's not how you make God happy, let me tell you. At any rate, so this female ruler of this spiritual layer has at times been a more karmic personality or a more Lilithian personality. And this is why there is kind of this dichotomy of, well, what does it mean to love Mother Nature? Okay, nature does evil things. It kills people with earthquakes, volcanoes, storms. That's nature. If you think that's a good thing, oh, it's just natural. We're supposed to die. Okay, that's stupid. That is basically saying, well, there's evil and there's nothing we can do about it. But there is something you can do about it, because we've already proven we can build physical Dyson spheres. We just got to perfect the whole package of a physical Dyson sphere, a spiritual Dyson sphere, and then a protective layer that includes both technologies for this outermost protection. Okay, once we have completed this exercise, we'll have basically a planet that is impervious to anything the adversary can throw at it. And that is what the apocalypse is all about. Once we get through this final birthing pains of this complete planet, we will have a template of God's planet, complete. No longer a work in progress. We don't need any dark, negative souls in this sphere. We can banish them. It's really easy to banish them, because once we complete this planet, we will have a system of technology that we can send any soul anywhere in the multiverse and have them get to the right destination, because the transmission media is karma, is this quantum consciousness layer, the wormhole layer, the transmission layer is governed by the final version of karma, the final released version, 12.x. Okay, those versions are not going to be changing very much. There will be further incarnations of karma, of Lucifer, of God, whatever. It's all going to be minor revisions to support new Genesis stories, new variations on this first perfect Genesis that we've accomplished on this planet. Okay, so the end of day 7 of creation is a completion for this planet. It's not a completion for the whole multiverse. And there's going to be endless work to do to implement, to define and implement other Genesis stories according to the whims and desires of other gods. But we've got this planet and its embodiment, the Messiah, the once and future king that's now finally completely awoken and isn't gonna get, go get destroyed by Morgan Le Fay or some evil goddess. The battles are already fought. There's nothing left. I mean, there's battles going on, but don't get me wrong, but as far as this planet goes, there's really not much left to do for the adversary but retreat. And we're trying to make that as easy as possible. Okay, what does that look like? Well, we don't want these undead supermensch running around this planet anymore. We're not going to kill them. Well, we might kill some of them. I mean, some of them may want to die because that's the only way they move up the value chain. Okay, if you're a vampire, you are stuck in a version of, in a warped version of humanity that may have a longer lifetime, but it is subject to the rules of, whatever vampire made you. Okay, that's a very hierarchical organization. And it's, whoever was the first vampire that made the next generation, it's a very pyramidal structure, the way it's organized. And so, you can continue being a vampire and live within that organization, but you won't do it on this planet. There is a vampire planet in this solar system. I'm pretty sure it's Venus is the vamp planet. And you can retreat there. They're not so happy about taking all the rejects because that's what they consider. And you guys blew it. We were going to take over God's planet and we were going to be number one again. I'm sorry, no, that's not how it's going to work. Humanity is the final chosen species. Everybody is going to always want to be human and will want to gravitate towards the center of time to play one of the characters in this special generation or the generations close to it, because that is how you become one of the gods that is closest to capital G-O-D. Okay, it gets you top of the hierarchy if you behave to the highest of the high. It gets you in with the in crowd, gets you into the kingdom. Not everybody is ever going to get to the kingdom of God. Not everybody is capable of functioning there. It's a very exclusive place. This planet is not going to be a life of ease for anybody we keep behind here. It's going to be work, because we are going to be doing physically what is going on spiritually in the highest heaven. We are going to be training the best sons of God and daughters of karma we can for the physical universe. Those sons of God will be of two varieties. They will be more Luciferian sons, and those will be the ones that will be going out fighting the battles in the rest of the galaxy, other galaxies, driving back evil so that we can have more godly planets. We can take this planet's organization and implement it on other planets in service of their chosen species. So the vampires planet, Venus, will develop, will become part of the Galactic Federation, and we would be one of the very important species in that federation with special capabilities. They will be a very Luciferian species because they feed on blood. That anchors them very, very much to the physical plane. There are others that are more anchored spiritually, who will be like the creatures of Saturn, for instance, are more of a Lilithian kind of organized species, but they're not a hive mind. They're independent spirits. And if they've submitted to the rule of God, they can serve a useful purpose in this game. They're not going to be the ones that we trust the most, but they will be useful for their spiritual capabilities, which they will only be allowed to keep and use if they stay within the bounds of karma. Okay, so these other kinds of souls are going to have to become more and more aware of karma. And as they become more aware of karma, they will reincarnate, they will make mistakes, they will die. When they're reborn, when they reincarnate, they will be that much more aware of, oh, now I understand how karma works. And eventually, there will be fewer and fewer souls needed that sort of feed on negative energy, feed on conflict, feed on pain and suffering. Okay, it's a process. It's a process that is going to go on at its own rate. It's not going to be a forced process. We're not going to, go slay every single vampire that we can find. If you like slaying vampires, there's going to be places where you can do that. Okay, in fact, the process of integrating Venus into a healthier Galactic Federation is going to require us to go root out the evil vampires, the ones that have been assimilated by hive minds and are being controlled and manipulated, and either drive them off that planet to wherever, or possibly go put a stake in their heart. It's their choice. It's not evil to kill. Okay? In fact, it can be a blessing. If a soul is in torment, if they are possessed by evil and they can't get out from under it, you're doing them a favor. Now, that doesn't mean we should go out and liberate every soul we can. That's insane, right? That's horribly sinful karmically. But there is a place for mercy killing. There is a place for killing for sustenance. Okay? If there's no other way to get the food you need, the nutrients you need, in whatever form you're incarnated in, whatever the needs of that vehicle are, it's okay to kill. Do it with a blessing. This is maybe a good time to tell a story from my training that kind of goes with that idea. When I was having my big awakening in the first of a 2-night ayahuasca ceremony, first time I'd ever done anything like that, and I have to caution everybody: don't go into it with any expectations, but that it might be the most painful experience of your life. That night wasn't actually painful, but the awakening process that followed was extremely painful. The dark nights of the soul I had to go through to get where I am today were not fun. At any rate, that first night of ayahuasca, one of the visions that was sent to me, and it's interesting, I'll mention the fact that most people, when they do ayahuasca, they have certain kinds of patterns that show up. They spend time with the machine elves or the fairy creatures of the Amazon. Another common theme, but the general sense is that it's a female-directed experience. That's why they call ayahuasca Mother Ayahuasca. Well, let me tell you, I journeyed with Father Ayahuasca. There was nothing feminine at all about that experience. In fact, it was orchestrated by a cat that I would say just... I know him better now, but at the time it was like, wow, this is like the Grand Poobah, the great king of the tall grays. This actually was the god of the tall grays. And that entity is essentially one of the early adversaries in all this game. They have reached a level of understanding that they know what's going on. And what was going on that night was this adversary entity was dumping into me everything. Basically, all the Akashic records. Bang! And this is how they test souls. This is what's going on when you have these see the light experiences, these near-death experiences that can happen both from near-death or from deep meditation or in psychedelic trips. They are dumping to see how much you can handle. And, most people who do psychedelics or have a near-death experience, they take in just enough to go up one level. They feel renewed. They feel healed. They feel, like they've got a new lease on life. And that's fine. Generally, it can also let in entities that want to control you and use you. And this is one of the primary ways that you can become possessed by one of these hive minds. At any rate, during that interesting night, the journey that this tall gray God, if you will, I think that would be a good way to describe how I understand this entity, took me on a journey, and one of the first stops was a past life where I was the leader of a tribe, a fairly primitive, maybe hunter-gatherer era tribe. And I was sitting on the top of a little hill overlooking where my tribe was camped, and I'd taken the first watch. It'd been a really good day. We'd had a really good hunt and brought down a big stag and eaten really well. Everybody got their fill, and it was like, man, this was a good day. As the leader of this tribe, I was like, wow, this is as good as it gets. I was sitting there thinking. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about this stag that we killed and how I hadn't given it any thought about killing such a magnificent beast. I mean, it must have been the king of the forest as far as deer go. Big rack of antlers. Clearly like the king of his tribe. And I had this horrible feeling of remorse and regret about, taking this other life and wondering, why must we do this and everything, and just really depressed. And then the spirit of the deer came to me, and he said, hey, you don't need to be this depressed, actually. It's not that great being incarnated as a deer. Even the king of the deer is nowhere near as important in the grand scheme of things as being the leader of your tribe. And we're watching you. We actually are here for you. And all we ask, it's not fun to die, and we're going to miss our families and whatnot, but all we ask is that you wish us and our people a better incarnation. And because we have given our life for you, this is like a karmic bond. This pulls them forward spiritually. And, who knows where that soul is now, but probably is somewhere here among humanity today. A very happy, probably well-adjusted soul who's had many interesting adventures since then. I don't know. Maybe I'll meet him in the afterlife. But this is what you need to understand about death. It's not the end. It can be the end. It's not necessarily the end. And what we do, what we should do when we consume life, and this applies to animals and plants. There's nothing particularly noble about being a vegetarian. That's nonsense. They have souls just like animals do. They feel pain. Yes, they do, you stupid asshole vegetarians. Plants feel pain. And they don't want to die any more than an animal. So get off your fucking high horse thinking you're all superior because I'm a vegetarian, I'm a vegan. You're stupid. You got to get your sustenance if you're in a human body. Here's what's going to be special, though, once we finish this phase of creation we're going through. If you're one of the ones that stays on this planet, we're not going to have to play those games anymore. We can, and there will be creatures on this planet, and you'll be able to go out and hunt if you want to. Cook your stuff that you hunt, eat your berries, do whatever. We're not really going to have to worry about cutting down forests and cultivating or any of that bullshit anymore, because we will have the equivalent of, your Star Trek food service technology. It's not going to just give you whatever you want. It's going to give you what you need and what you deserve. It's governed by karma. Everything that comes out of the quantum consciousness realm into this realm is governed by karma. Okay? And in the perfected planet, which will at some point be a perfected solar system, and at some point will be a perfected galaxy, within those fully formed areas, we're not going to need to be playing those conflict games, those morally challenging games that have caused us so much trouble. We will be playing moral games, but they will be at a higher level. They will be with, okay, what are you doing to further God's plan in this universe? And in the physical universe, this is not God's universe. This is God's planet, and it's going to eventually be God's galaxy. But the whole universe around us is Lucifer's. So we have to play by Lucifer's laws. Okay? Lucifer's laws are not much different than God's, except you have to conform to all the limitations of physics and chemistry. Okay, so once something comes into this universe, it will still rot. It will have contaminants. It will spoil. But we will be able to get a meal and have really good food without having to think too much about cooking, because we're going to be really busy on this planet producing the leaders of the Galactic Federation, the Starfleet captains and top officers. Most of them are going to be human, because we have this special edge of having been the final chosen species. Okay, other characters in this greater simulation are going to want to get close to us, because those karmic ties to humanity are going to bring them closer to God. The more time they spend around humans, the more likely when they die, they're going to be able to offer the opportunity to come back as a human. Why? Because they're going to be converting to our religions, to our belief systems, to our culture. When they become acclimatized to that, that will give them a strong enough tie that when they die, they don't need to come back to their same old species. They can if they want to. It'll be a choice. It's always a choice. That's the way God works. God is not a force. God is inspiration, is opportunity. You're always in charge. At least that's the way it is now. It's not going to be like it was in the past. You want your almighty God? Become a Luciferian. Go worship one of the fakers that claims to be Almighty God. Maybe call it Jesus. Call it Allah. Call it Mother Nature. Whatever you want to worship, there's a place for you. But unless you're understanding the real God and this system that I've been telling you about, you're not going to get to that highest heaven. Okay? Not going to be able to play one of those roles that will give you a house in the highest heaven and the ability to raise children there and to sit on the divine council. It's not anybody's fault but your own if you don't get there. There are requirements. There are entrance requirements. There's no such thing as a free lunch in the simulation multiverse. If you want to get free lunches, fine. There are any number of gods you can worship that will promise you anything to get you to worship them and to get you to go to their afterlife. And some of them actually do a pretty good job of training lower level souls. I'm not dissing any god or goddess out there. But don't pretend that your cult is the only way, the only truth. My God is the only God that anybody should worship. This is nonsense. This is very dogmatic. It's basically reducing your religious beliefs to a dogmatic hive mind cult. My way or the highway. This is how hive minds work. They won't accept any deviation from their beliefs. That's your choice. You can belong to a cult like that. But you probably, if you're that dogmatic, you're not going to get to stay on this planet after the event. You are going to be sent to one of many other worlds where, okay, there's a world for fundamentalist Christians, for fundamentalist Muslims. You're going to be isolated, so you're not going to be such a pain in the ass. If you want to stay, you're going to have to become more honest in your beliefs. You're going to have to accept that my teaching, whatever religion I was in, is flawed. It's not the complete truth. Allah is not equal to God. Jesus is not equal to God. Mother Mary is not equal to God. Even the Holy Spirit is not equal to God. Until you get that through your thick gourd, you're not going to get a chance to be incarnated on this planet or get closer to God. And that's fine. It's not for everybody. You might be perfectly happy in some other universe with some other God's flock. That might be just your cup of tea. You might be happy incarnating forever in some different galaxy and never having a religion. Never knowing that you have a God or that there are many gods. That's a choice. There's nothing wrong with it. Can actually be an easier way to get by. If you're not inclined to learn and grow, you just want to play the same kind of character over and over and over and over again, that's fine. You can do that. There's nobody going to push you that's any good. If anybody is pushing you in a certain direction spiritually, that is doing it in a way that is, it's like, okay, here's an opportunity. This is what my path looks like. This is what my beliefs give me the hope for. That's the way to share your religion. It's not to guilt trip them. That, oh, if you don't do this, you're going... Well, you can do a little bit of that right now, because if people are on a path that's going to get them marked out as a beast, okay? Beast marking is essentially, it means that you are going to start over in this game of souls. It means everything that you've learned as a human being, however many times you've incarnated, you're going to lose all that. Now, that may be a good choice for some. You may have had a bunch of really rough outings and I just want to wipe the slate. Go for it. More power to you. But if you are being pulled into these hive mind cults of, let's go back to source. We want to go to nirvana. Okay, and you're being told that that is the destination, the best you can do. Get off the wheel of karma and reincarnation and you'll be perfect. They're telling you nonsense. This is not truth. It will get you sucked into a hive mind, or the ultimate sucking is going back to source, being sucked into the Borg, having your soul's merkaba wiped after it's copied to the Akashic records. That's what happens if I want to go back to source. I want to be nothing. I want to lose all my ego. I want to kill my ego. That's what's going to happen to you. That's the best that will happen to you. There's actually, most of these cults actually are feeding kind of a Lilithian force. The ones that are very politicized, that have an agenda, who aren't just saying, well, just disconnect and, don't play the game. That's kind of like the pure neo-Buddhist. Is a Lilithian hive mind. That is evil. If you fall into that cult, you will be taken out, off planet. You're going to be picked up by one of these orbs that's been hanging. It might look like Earth. You might not even know there's been any change, but you're going to be in an Earth that is what this planet would have been like if we let the adversary win. And it's going to be dark and it's going to be ugly. And you're going to be told what to do, when to do, how to do it, and it's going to be exactly like, maybe even worse than the movie The Matrix. You're going to feel that trapped and know that you're trapped, without any really good way to escape. It's not going to be like you can be Super Neo or Neo and get out of the Matrix. That's why I got to warn people. You don't want to mark yourself as a beast. If you're will you up in consciousness, make you able to handle more challenging roles, or they will keep you on a staff there. If you're extremely dogmatic, that's the kind of character they need to keep their heaven functional. Okay, so, fundamentalist Christians, that's probably where you're going to end up. If you are so augured into Jesus tells me everything to do, and I just have to do whatever Jesus tells me. Okay, that's a hive mind. It's a Christian hive mind, a Jesus hive mind. That's not a bad place to be. You're probably going to pretty soon, you're going to get sent to a spiritual universe where your kind are happy. Everybody's going to be the same kind of Christian as you, and they're going to have the rules that you like, and the society you like, and the restrictions you like, and you'll probably be perfectly happy for a while till you get tired of the sameness of it all, wondering if there's something more, wondering if you're missing something, because one of the characteristics of these Christian heavens, these hive mind heavens, is they just make life so easy. Okay, do anything you want within the rules of your religion. So like if you go to a Jewish heaven, you're not going to have pork. It won't even be there. Won't be on the menu. You don't have to worry about it. You won't even know what pork is after a while. But it's going to be very, very restricted to a particular denominational mindset. Okay, it's like, imagine what it's like to go to church on Sunday. And you kind of had this good feeling that, I'm going to be with my people. But imagine what that would. Those were the only people you were around. You had no other influences, no other friends. That's what a fundamentalist Christian heaven is like. Probably see something you're going to get tired of, and you're going to see, oh, gosh, there must be something more to existence, to reincarnation, than just constantly coming back to this same place. And that's when you're going to be ready to move up the spiritual ladder. Have an incarnation in a different culture, in a different era. And you'll get those choices. And your guides within your heaven, if it's one of the better heavens, they will have a good idea. Next step for a fundamentalist Christian that was from the 1880s or so, this particular decade of and mode of Christian thought. And they will gradually try to move you to places where you might feel more comfortable, depending on your personality. And they'll be able to spot that because they will see your behavior in their heaven, which things that they want to keep standardized there that you're having trouble conforming to. And that's, again, it's part of how things work. They're going to be as ready as you to get rid of you as you are to just kind of move on. And so I can here, and now it's kind of mutually not helpful to keep coming to this same afterlife clinic. And you'll say, okay, let's step off here. What direction do you think would be useful? Well, I think maybe you might find it interesting to incarnate as a Muslim this time, or as this or that or whatever. And that's how you'll develop a wider perspective. And it's developing a wider perspective that will flesh out your merkaba, who you are at your core, when you take off all of the disguises that you've had in incarnation, in all these virtual realities. You'll be going to be when you get to be a god and you have full control over your own universe. You will have a full memory of all the characters you've ever played, and you'll be able to kind of craft an identity for yourself that is my God identity, whatever that is. You'll be able to change that as easy as that's the joy of being a god. It's not all joy, though. It's a responsibility. Because when you have your own creative universe, okay, you do not control the interface between you and other universes. And you can be cut off. You will lose the ability to send your flock to physical incarnations. Or, you'll be limited to galaxies that haven't been colonized yet. Okay, let's pick a galaxy out of the hat. We can send our characters there and let them develop in this very isolated spot that we don't know when or if is ever going to be coming into conflict with the rest of the multiverse. So they won't be learning that much. They won't be that happy enjoying the game that you're making them play. And you'll lose a lot of your converts. And they will want to not exist again with the total reset. But if you're in one of these really evil goddess universes, afterlife, that's what you may want to do eventually. You'll want to just get me out of here. I really screwed up getting to this place, and the only way out is to reassimilate with Source. Let me out. So the most evil gods and goddesses eventually will find that they're in their own creative universe with nothing but the lowest level non-player characters. They won't. It's especially the worst kind of tyranny is, like I said, a hive mind where you're manipulating the reality of everybody around you. That is what a hive mind is all about. It's not a good thing. You can organize that way, and it serves creation. They make great adversaries. But, you need to warn people. That's what I'm doing. I'm not dissing anybody. I'm not trying to put anybody's religion down. But I know the truth. Telling you, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything, but I can infer a lot from what is going on. I'm very actively engaged in observing the world today and the world of the past, and integrating that with what I've learned about other worlds, the spiritual realms, the heavenly realm. And that's what I'm sharing with you. At any rate, it's going to get strange. It already is getting pretty strange. If you've been following what's been going on in the U.S., you'll know that U.S. where demonic behavior is openly being displayed. It's not hiding anymore. They're coming out in the open because it's very close to the end. And zero for the spiritual war right now. If you're in one of these communities where you're invaded by Venezuelan gangs or Haitian gangs or Somali gangs or Pakistani gangs or whatever, there are a lot of countries in this world that basically have been China is kind of sin central. That's why they call it sinophilia, loving sin. It means also loving China. And I'm not dissing Chinese people. I have Chinese family, and I love the average Chinese person that's just trying to get by and not getting sucked into the demonic games of the CCP or the globalist cabal. You've got to be able to distinguish between the leadership of organizations and the people that are kind of stuck within it as useful. The sad thing about China is it's been under evil leadership for so long that there are still victims, but there's mostly useful idiots who actually are going along with what's going on there, or would institute something even more evil. I think if the CCP gets overthrown, which I think it will very soon, could well be that an even worse regime takes over. And you get an even more dystopian version of communism. It's a disease. It's really a political disease. It is one of the most evil religions that has ever been created by humanity. It's the other side of the coin. They're both equally bad. And that's kind of by design. That's the evil of Marx's generation, was that some of them were preaching this religion of capitalism and some were preaching this religion of communism and creating this duality of two poles of evil. Both thinking that if only everything was this way, if only we were completely free market, or if we were completely socialized, everything would be wonderful. These are sick people. It's a really sick religion. Everything pretty much that's come out of postmodernism where? Oops. Well, and humanity's the bad guy because we're destroying the planet. And a lot of really evil religions have sprung up in the last couple hundred years. And we need to get back to some sanity, and we will those of us who are allowed to stay and rebuild this planet, make it back into the Garden of Eden, which it was supposed to be, which we will do, and at the same time, we will be supplying the best of the best to the Galactic Federation. There will be other Starfleet academies besides on this planet, but this is going to be like the premier one. Senior leadership of one of the larger star cruisers. Okay, that's how it's kind of going to be. We may not be building those here. That's not going to be our specialty. Although we will be doing a lot of the R&D here, led by, folks like Elon. He's probably of the group of folks that gathered at that conference last week. He's the one that I think probably has his shit together the most in terms of not doing evil, not being driven by ambition so much as a desire to do good. One of the ones that gets to stay and work on this grand experiment. Now, of course, he's got a big focus on Mars, so he may be involved in organizing the conquest of Mars, because there's a species living there. Again, like here, Mars doesn't have a surface world. It's been blown away. But they have an inner world, just like we do. They've got an elemental core, and they've got a spiritual surrounding inside the burnout husk of their surface. And we're going to grade treat those under their leadership, and we'll replace some, send some elsewhere. The same process that's going on here, basically. How soon is that going to happen? I don't know. It will happen. It's guaranteed to happen. It's guaranteed that we're going to win. How long will that take? How long before we've got this whole solar system fixed up? Yeah, could take a while. We've got some battles to fight. We've got building to do. We've even got R&D to do, because we have to actually implement it technically, spiritually, in harmony, in tandem, to build out this full structure. This phase that we're going to get through is going to get us past the point where the innermost and the spiritual layers are going to be finished. There will still be the potential for the outermost layer being damaged. And could well be that we're going to have to move to the drum of events happening externally, and some of us will be and then maybe the whole surface of this planet might be scoured. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but it still could at this point. And that is part of the dynamic of what's going on right now. Nobody knows exactly how this whole thing is going to end up, because this was all planned in the mind of God. But God wasn't there. It was all planned by essentially non-player gods. Automation planned by AI. And we are playing out what with free will, playing this scenario. Who knows how long, trying to get to this perfect solution where everybody wakes up in just the right order at just the right time. It's a really special time. It's a wonderful special time, and nobody really knows how it's going to all happen in the end. Everybody has an idea. They have some legend, some prophecy of their particular faction, but that may not be what happens in this universe. It may be what happens in their heaven, which, just like the different. Okay, this is why there have been so many false prophets, false messiahs, fake gods. Okay, they're not necessarily fake in the purest sense, but they are working toward a different perfection in their gods or goddesses' own version of where we go next. And some of you will end up in these alternate versions. The apocalypse may not look for you like it's going to look for me. This is going on in society around you. There are different people who have a totally different viewpoint of what's going on right now. Some will argue up and down, there's no spiritual stuff going on here. There's no aliens. There's no demons. You're crazy. And that's probably, for some fraction, maybe a large fraction of humanity, is what this whole event is going to look like. I didn't see nothing. Looks the same to me. And, some number of years later, your world will get destroyed. Humanity will be extincted. And so, if you're doubting what I'm saying, if you think, no, that'll never happen, well, okay, maybe it won't for you. I'm telling you the big picture. I'm giving you like some of the best case and worst case things that can happen from my point of view, because I'm playing on God's side, okay? I want to be in that highest heaven. In fact, I want to be God for a while. I think it'd be kind of fun. Probably get tired of it. Probably hope somebody else plays my character better than I did so I can really retire. But at any rate, hope you enjoyed that one. Like, share, subscribe. Tune in again to the Omnist Hour with Rob Trump. Till then, happy karma.